Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome. I hope everyone's doing well. I am doing well. We're going to be looking at GPT today, which I'm really excited about. Some really cool new technology that some people are saying is making waves in the development and basically every community. So I'm excited to look into it with y'all about how we can use it in our hacking projects. Hello, welcome. I'm really excited too. This is, I think, going to be a really good stream. Hi, Adam. Welcome. Thank you. My hair changes every time. I'm going to spit out my gum. In hindsight, that might have not been smart when I have a microphone in my face. I don't want y'all to be hearing my gum. Okay, that should be better. Hopefully. Oh my goodness, I see a bunch of people here. I'm excited. I'm glad that we have a big group today. Now, I will be honest, ChatGPT is very popular, and as such, let me switch to screen sharing here. Oopsie whoopsie, it is at capacity right now. So, ChatGPT normally, oh my goodness, I refreshed the page. Let me try. Come on, let me in, please. Oh! Am I a robot? Here's the real question. I'm glad it's working for some people. I have a backup already set. So if it doesn't let me in, it's totally fine. I have a local version of a slightly older version of the code running on my computer, but if this works, I will be eternally grateful. Oh no! Adam, I'm so sorry about your pizza. I don't do spicy either. I get the pain. I'm a Midwesterner, very white, don't have any spice tolerance. So hopefully we're gonna be able to log in here. But while it's loading, I do have this alternate version here. I think if I set this to Code Sage, it'll be good at writing code. This is a version of the GPT algorithm, which is used for ChatGPT, just not from OpenAI. So it's not optimized to be a chatbot, but it should still be able to do all the cool things that GPT-3 can do. So we have hey, we got in. Okay, now that we're in, if it dies, it dies, but we're in. For those of y'all who haven't used ChatGPT before, you can go to chat.openai.com. I'm going to drop that link in chat for you. This is a very, very cool project that is slightly scary, but also just like, I don't know. I think it's worth experimenting with. So that's why we're here today. I'm going to put that link up on screen too for y'all. So what does hack mean in coding? This is actually a really common question. So hack, especially in the Major League Hacking community, is basically referring to like MacGyvering. If you know of MacGyver, sticking things together with duct tape, your code isn't necessarily the cleanest ever, but it is like, it's functional, it works, you've hacked it together. That is how I perceive hack, especially in the hackathon space where your goal is to write functional code in a short period of time. So not necessarily committing cyber attacks or anything like that, which if you follow the news, ChatGPT can be used for, but we are not going to be talking about that today. So hack just in terms of making something cool in a short period of time. Right here, I literally paste my error into ChatGPT. It tells me why the error is there and how to solve it. It is OP. Exactly. This right here. So I just got the question, what is ChatGPT for? ChatGPT is what is called a large language model, I believe. I believe that's the full thing. Basically, up to 2021, that's when they cut it off. They gave it a bunch of data from the internet, which is websites, it's code, it's conversations, it's all of this stuff, books, anything that they can give it text-wise. And it is designed to predict what comes next in a sentence. That is like the core of it. But with that, they've done a whole bunch of cool training, machine learning stuff that I honestly don't know anything about, but there's probably a white paper about that enables it to answer really cool questions in a very good way in terms of being human readable. and hopefully often correct. We'll get into the warnings of this later on, but that is what ChatGPT theoretically is. But what is it good for? Well, it's really good for a couple of things. Well, it's probably good for many things. That's what people are experimenting with. That's why it's in free open use for the public. But what we're going to be focusing on today is two things. One is it's really good with code, because it's trained on the internet, and the internet has a whole bunch of code in it. Surprise, surprise, ChatGPT is good at writing and understanding code. The second thing is I use it kind of as a replacement for Google. Think when you Google something and you would just read whatever blurb Google selects and take that as the answer. That's when I sometimes use ChatGPT as well. Excuse me. That's when I would also use ChatGPT, because it can summarize things and give them to you in a very like human readable format. What sets ChatGPT apart from other AI programs? So I'm, again, not a machine learning or artificial intelligence professional or expert by any means, but ChatGPT is, first of all, GPT-3 is a really, really good model that is probably used in majority of text-based AIs right now. So Novel AI and things like that are all using GPT-3, which is the algorithm made by OpenAI, released to the public for use in experimentation. ChatGPT takes that really good language model and it puts it in a chatbot form where you can ask it clarifying questions. You can ask it to revise its answers and things like that. And it can go back in the memory of the conversation that you've had with it, a so-called thread, and it can revise, it can change, and it can understand. So we can get into like how that works later, but that is the thing that sets it apart, specifically the chat aspect. It is designed to be a chatbot where you don't just ask it one question, it spits out an answer. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer, and then you can follow up. And you can ask like, I don't like how you wrote that code, or that doesn't make sense to me, and it can try again, and it can reframe and rephrase and do all of these things. If anyone is wondering, the GPT in ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-training Transformer. Thank you. Okay. Now that being said, I do want to open up. It has some warnings every time you open it up. If I refresh the page, and hopefully it doesn't kick me out. Okay. So it gives you some warnings at the beginning, and I'm going to paraphrase them. If you open this up, which I definitely think you should definitely read those warnings. I did when I first started working with this. But the main two that I want to be focusing on today are, one, again, this was trained on things pre-2021. So if you ask it anything about current events, about like a new API that's been released, anything like that, it won't know because oh my goodness. Right here. I'm just going to zoom in on this. Capabilities. Remembers what user said earlier in the conversation. Allows user to provide follow-up corrections, trained to decline inappropriate requests. That answers your question about what makes it special. Limitations. May occasionally generate incorrect information. Limited knowledge of the world and events after 2021. May occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content. I wish I had been reading my screen. These are the limitations, and I especially want to point out towards may occasionally generate incorrect information. ChatGPT is not intelligent. It doesn't actually have a way of like knowing other than like what it's been trained on, which means it doesn't ever know when it's wrong. So it can say things very confidently that are very wrong very frequently. So you need to take everything that it outputs with a grain of salt because it might not be right. This is especially important when you're doing something that is very sensitive in nature. I wouldn't necessarily ask this questions and like take the results without any further research or Googling about like cultures or people or complex events. With the use that we're going to be working with today, which is with code, it might generate incorrect information, and that means our code won't run, which it's not the end of the world. Then we just go back and learn more ourselves and try to fix it, or we ask it to fix it. We can give it more information. But I just want to state all of these limitations up front so y'all know this isn't some magic bullet. It's good. It's much better than what has already been out there, but it isn't perfect. And it has its flaws. Okay. Looks like a project that would come out of a sci-fi novel. Yeah, it can be pretty intense, which can be scary and cool. But yeah, it's pretty out there. And how do we deploy it? So we aren't going to be deploying it into a project today. If you want to use that, you can use the GPT-3 like model that they've trained, and they have OpenAI has API access to that model on their website, so you can look into that, but that's not what we're going to be working with today. Today, we're going to be using this as like a helper tool that's going to work with us to help us write our code. The idea is this isn't going to be in like the end result of the product, but rather is a tool that we are going to be working with. You guys might have heard of GitHub Copilot or projects like that. They're projects that are trying to give developers AI tools to help them write code faster. That's kind of where we're going to be going with this, but also we're going to be trying to learn with it as well. Okay. With that being said, please keep asking. Ciao. DALL-E is another awesome OpenAI project which generates images based on a prompt. Yes, OpenAI is at the bleeding edge of all of this stuff, which I have complex feelings about. I don't necessarily know if this is a good thing for anyone, and I'm especially scared with DALL-E and things like that, because I feel like it's being used in some ways that are kind of deeply unethical, but that's not the topic of conversation for today. I leave it up to you to make your own opinions of AI. I might continue to talk about this later, but that's not the main focus. Have you heard of GitHub Speech to Code? I have not. That sounds very interesting, especially for accessibility, for allowing people to write code who might not necessarily be able to type on a traditional keyboard. Okay. Now, I've gone through all this spiel of like, this is a tool that's going to help us do something. And you might be asking, well, what are we going to do? Well, I don't have a personal website, and you don't need one nowadays. I actually think if you don't have the skills to make a personal website look better than like LinkedIn profile, then just send people to your LinkedIn profile. But I figured it would be an interesting place to experiment with some things that I'm going to be just like working with this week. And also, it's a great first project because there's no expectations for other people, and it gives you space to just experiment with stuff. And given that this week is beginner oriented, I thought it'd be a good beginner project. So if you joined me last time, you saw me trying to use some no-code tools to take a Figma design and turn it into a functioning website, and that didn't work out. So today, we're going to be trying to ask GPT to help us write a website using hopefully Next.js. And we're going to see how it goes. Okay. I'm going to, again, before we get too far into it, I'm going to drop the link for y'all to check in to this event. Let us know that you're here and get points for your guild. That is in chat now. It's being sent. Ciao, that's out there. And then I'm also going to drop the chat.openai.com link again because I want y'all to be able to experiment with this yourself. If y'all know Linus Tech Tips, which you probably do if you're in this community, very big tech communication and like more IT-focused computer stuff YouTube channel. Linus is the person who is the CEO of Linus Tech Tips, and he has been working with his longtime partner, Luc Lafreniere, for like a decade now, and they have a podcast together called The WAN Show. That's a lot of prologue. I'm assuming at least some of you have heard of The WAN Show before, if not listened to it yourself. Luc runs the software development for a company called Floatplane, which is an alternative video streaming service that's like subscription-based, meant to help support creators, kind of like a Nebula or a Patreon sort of thing. But this is to say, he works in technology communication and he's a software developer, and he has been on this podcast multiple times, mostly in December, to talk about how ChatGPT is completely changing his approach and his team's approach to writing code, and they're thinking a lot about its possible implications for the future. So there's a lot of chatter from people that I think have pretty interesting voices about how influential this is. So I want to make sure that y'all can experiment with this on your own, because Luc, who has more experience with this, leading a team of computer science developers, people like that, he's consistently talked about how if this grows bigger, a marketable skill will be the ability to use these sort of AI systems. So if you think that that is an important thing, which it could be, I don't know enough to be able to make a concrete opinion, but I think it could be useful for you to experiment with this. Hi, welcome. Great. Okay. Given a 20-minute prologue, let's get into trying to make something. So I'm logged into ChatGPT, and I'm gonna ask it a question of that. Hi, I want to make a. Hey, you did. I'm really excited. We're about to get started. Welcome. I want to make a personal portfolio website that uses a static React.js framework. What would you recommend? And let's see what it says about this. Well, it's given me the top two, Gatsby and Next.js, that I was already debating on. I'm going to let this run, and then I'm going to look at it, and I'll check chat. Adam loves React. Good to know. Highway. Great. Okay. Haha. Okay. So it's recommended either Gatsby or Next.js, which is what I was debating on between them. So here we go. It's already answered my question. There are several static site generators that work well with React. Some popular ones include Gatsby, Next.js, and Create React App. Gatsby is a static site generator for React that's built with performance and scalability in mind. It comes with a powerful plugin system that allows you to easily add functionality to your site, such as support for images and schema.org metadata. Next.js is a React framework that allows you to build both server-rendered and static React applications. It provides a built-in development server and supports server-side rendering, which can improve the performance of your site. Adam, I am manifesting for your tongue to become less spicy. Now, okay, so it's given me two things about Gatsby and React, and it talks about Create React App, but I don't especially care about that, and it's recommending either Gatsby or Next.js. Now, I have a couple of options here. One is regenerate response, which is to ask it to exactly regenerate with this question, or I can ask follow-up questions. Try saying write the code for it. That's where we're going there. But I want to walk through a whole process of using this to narrow down what I want to use. So, now based on my experience, I don't really think we need, because it's a personal website, I specifically wanted it to use a static site because we don't need it to be custom generating anything super fancy. So it's talking so much about server-side rendering here and development servers and all of these things for performance, whereas Gatsby, it's mentioning plugins. So I'm going to ask, does Next.js provide plugin support? And we'll see what it says to that. Yes. Okay. Now, you can already see how this could be very dangerous, and if this was just completely wrong, I would have no way of knowing. We're going to go and do some of our own research to kind of cross-check this if anything comes up that doesn't already align with my preconceived knowledge of this. But also, this is a very nice, concise answer where Googling this would have gotten me to a couple of rambling Medium posts and maybe a Stack Overflow where I need to trace 3 duplicate questions back. I can sometimes struggle to find plain text answers that are at the level that I'm looking for, because I'm not looking for how to write my own Next.js plugin. I don't need the specification for that. I'm just looking for some information about it. So Next.js does provide plugin support. It has built-in support for plugins, which are JavaScript modules that extend the functionality of the framework. You can use plugins to add features such as dynamic imports, environment variables, and custom Babel configurations to your application. Plugins are added to your project by installing them as npm packages and then configuring them in your next.config.js file. Next.js provides an API for customizing Webpack configurations, which allows you to configure and use Webpack plugins in your project. Additionally, Next.js has its own set of built-in plugins. For example, the Next Images plugin automatically optimized images, and the Next Optimized Images plugin provides responsive images with automatic resizing and compression, which is great and nice to know, especially for a static website. You can also find a lot of community plugins available for Next.js, which will help you add additional functionality to the website, similar to Next Sass, Next CSS, Next Redux, and Next Offline, many more. Great. I'm going to ask the same questions, like what plugins does Gatsby support? Did I spell it? Great. Okay. And we're going to let that generate. It's trending that ChatGPT might take the jobs of software engineers. I'm kind of scared. This is where, yeah, I kind of have some complex feelings about this, because I think it is a very powerful tool that can make some things a lot easier, and it can generate code. We're going to get to that. There is the argument that because an AI system like this can't know if it's correct, there is a need for humans to be able to work with that as you take it as a starting place and then you refine it. Yeah, I think this was addressed by several experts. Yes. There are so many experts who are talking about this. Please, if you're curious, do more Googling, do more research. There we go. Still needing humans for organization, testing, and critical thinking. That's kind of what I was referring to. The problem is you can say that all you want, and it can be true all that you want, but it doesn't mean that it won't make a shitty time for people trying to just do their job. So I don't think necessarily that computer science is like a dead field or anything like that, but I definitely think that this has some big implications that I personally can't see how it'll impact, especially with right now with the downsizing that's happening in the tech industry, where basically every big tech company that had a huge valuation is like decreasing the amount of developers that they have. I feel like it can be very easy for developers to be exploited and replaced and treated really poorly, especially because developer roles are traditionally like not unionized and anything like that. So ChatGPT doesn't necessarily inherently replace people, but that doesn't mean that capitalism is going to do what capitalism does and make people suffer because of it. Does the generated text resulting by ChatGPT solution is right? So we can't, I don't have the information to be able to give you like an exact ratio of when it's right to when it's wrong. All I can tell you is the warnings that OpenAI has given, which are, it can be very confidently wrong, and you need to treat everything that it gives you as possibly incorrect, as an unreliable source. So, does it being a correct answer able to be adapted for an official document like a scientific paper? There's also an interesting question of ownership. There was a recent court case in the US around AI generated art, I think specifically for the Board 8 project, which stated that all of them are public domain. They can't be copywritten because no human actually did the work to create them. So theoretically, all output from ChatGPT cannot be copyrighted because it's the work of a computer system. That precedent is based on a case where a monkey stole a photographer's camera and took a picture of itself, and because the human didn't actually take that picture, the monkey did, the monkey would have copyright ownership of it, and therefore it's public domain. So using it in things is kind of a moral and ethical gray area depending on your field, because it's not yours. So if you're in the arts, you don't actually have ownership of it, and if you're in the sciences, I don't know what the repercussions there. That's going to be up to some larger ethics boards. That being said, let's take a look at the results. I'm just going to skim this. Gatsby transformer JSON, transform JSON files into nodes in the graph. Okay. Gatsby source file system. Oh, I forgot that Gatsby uses GraphQL. Ugh, gross. I don't know GraphQL. I should eventually. Okay. Gatsby transforms markdown files into HTML and makes them available in the GraphQL schema. Optimizes images and provides responsive image functionality. Generates a manifest for a progressive web app. generates a sitemap, adds offline functionality using a service worker. Great. So we have basically very similar options between the two of them. Which would you choose? Gatsby or Next? I doubt that it'll actually be able to give us an answer here. Hey, look, this sounds like a very similar answer. Okay. I was saying like, oh, this sounds like a similar answer, because up here, this is basically the same that we got when we first asked the question up here. But I would just like to point out, both Gatsby and Next.js are great choices for building a personal portfolio website using a static React framework. That is the question that we wrote way up above. So it remembers in this thread. If you want a static site generator, Gatsby. If you want server rendered and static, Next. We just want static, so we'll go with Gatsby. I love how it writes arguments for each that it's been asked to write an essay. Oh yeah, it entirely does. It's kind of funny because I see a lot of like myself when I was a more nervous person in academia of like, okay, I got to structure everything in a complete sentence in a full argument with an opening paragraph and 3 arguments and a closing paragraph. Like it's very formal in its structure, and you can see how it's reflecting a very specific writing style that it's picked up from the internet. Specifically in like, you can basically see like this tone being used on like programming blogs and things like that. Great. Okay. So it's basically told us to choose Gatsby, which is great. What can you tell me about Gatsby's GraphQL schema? Adam, I used ChatGPT to help me write an assignment. It was great. Right here. Just to warn everyone, there are programs to detect chatbot written text and essays for university and college. I personally am of the opinion that it depends on the assignment, the ethicalness of using it. For me personally, I don't actually know if I have a great answer for like this question, which is like, should you or would I use ChatGPT for schoolwork? And yes, 1000% yes. I think using it as like a Google tool for research, 1000%. Like I've already used it occasionally for that. For writing things, I don't think I would, partly also because I know that I have a fairly distinct writing style, and I have talked with enough professors to know that in a reasonable class size, a professor gets to know the writing style of each student. So unless you're in like one of your introductory classes with like 1,000 students in it, it would kind of stand out if you were to switch between the two. And also, I think the purpose of school is learning. So I personally would prefer to just put in the work. In a workplace, I think using a tool like this to like, if you were, let's say you're working in sales and you need to generate like 50 emails to cold email out to companies to see if they would sponsor your event or whatever like that. I feel like this could be a really good use for that, because it's not needing to be like, no one's asking for it to be unique and like special copywritten content. It's all fairly standard and formal, which means it already has like a code or a structure that's supposed to fit to, and you're just supposed to like kind of customize it, tweak it a little bit for each application. Within that realm, oh yeah, I think it's a great tool for just like, you give it a sentence of like, oh yeah, I need to write an email to Google asking to see if they can sponsor my hackathon. Like, let it run with that, and then you can just edit it. But I wouldn't ask it to do things that are super specific. That's my own personal morals. You can make your own decisions. Usually textual content is correct, in terms of like grammar, syntax, that sort of thing. So yes, I would answer to this with a general yes. There's if you search, there's some GitHub repos with them. I know New York Public Schools has already banned the use of ChatGPT on their network, so you can't access it. Please don't watch my stream and drive. Stay safe while driving. Be safe. That, I think, was the most awkward series of words out of my mouth of all time. Okay, let's take a look at what I asked about Gatsby's GraphQL. Yep, ChatGPT helped me in writing many functions. In a few minutes, it saves my hours. Totally. It's really good at doing kind of rote, repetitive work. And if you can test its output and check to make sure it's right, like, yeah. Okay. Gatsby uses GraphQL to handle data in a powerful and flexible way. The Gatsby GraphQL schema is a representation of all the available data that Gatsby knows about, which includes data from various data sources such as Markdown files, CMSs, and APIs. Oh my goodness, I'd love to be a radio show for Adam on your drive. I'm going to. Hi, and welcome to Adam's Drive-By Radio. Come stop by and learn about Gatsby while you're driving, and you'll learn how to code. WWMLH FM 109.3. That's my bad radio impression. Turnitin, I don't know if it has ChatGPT support. Turnitin is a generic plagiarism checker. Where do I subscribe? I'm sold now. I appreciate it. Maybe I should go into radio. Maybe that's my true calling. Okay. I keep getting distracted because we're just talking about ChatGPT, which is the point of this session. But I also want to try seeing if we can use it to write some Gatsby code. So Gatsby uses GraphQL to handle data, blah, blah, blah. Which includes data from various sources such as Markdown files, CMSs, and APIs, which I knew about Gatsby before. I have some friends who've used Gatsby for personal projects, and this is one of the things that makes me really excited about it, is if you want to like run a blog, you can just feed Gatsby a Markdown file, and theoretically it should already have plugins, which we saw above, right here. Gatsby transformer remark, which transforms Markdown files into HTML and makes them available in the GraphQL schema. Like theoretically, it should be really good at like allowing you to write things simply and adding it, and taking in things from a CMS, which is a content management system. When Gatsby starts, it creates a schema based on the data it knows about. The schema is then used to generate the GraphQL API, which allows you to query the data in your application. The Gatsby GraphQL schema is organized into types, which correspond to different types of data, such as pages, posts, and images. Each type has a set of fields, which correspond to the specific properties of that type of data. Now, GraphQL is, I believe, created by Facebook, and it's the specific system that they use for data management within Facebook, as a document-based, as a NoSQL. NoSQL is the term for that. I'm like 90% sure. It's been a while since I was in my database class. As a NoSQL like data management database solution. So if you're already familiar with GraphQL, this is like really great. Again, I've never used it, so we're gonna be learning. Dimmer Talks is now clipped. Oh my goodness, send that link to me. Okay. The GraphQL schema is organized into types, which correspond to different types of data, such as pages, posts, and images. Each type is a set of fields, which correspond to the specific properties of that type of data. For example, if you have a Markdown file that represents a blog post, Gatsby will create a Markdown remark type in the schema. The type will have fields such as ID, HTML, excerpt, formatter, and so on that correspond to the properties of the mark. I know that I froze a little bit. For those of you who don't know, this computer is held together by a piece of electrical tape. So occasionally it freezes, but she's doing her best, okay? Great. You can access the data in the Gatsby GraphQL schema using GraphQL queries in your React components. Gatsby provides a powerful and flexible way to query data, allowing you to retrieve only the data you need and retrieve it in the shape that you need. You can also use Gatsby's static query and use static query hooks to query the data in your components. This allows you to easily retrieve data from the schema in your components and use it to build your pages. Additionally, Gatsby offers a built-in graph IQL tool, which is a web-based interface. Which is a web-based interface that allows you to interactively explore the Gatsby GraphQL schema, test queries, and check the results. Now, I am Googling this because this is not something I knew about, and I'm fact-checking it. GraphicQL is a thing. Great. About to drive off. Let's see how the stream holds up. I suspect I'm going to go through a no data zone and it'll die. Rip my voice in Adam's car when that happens. I'm already grieving. Are these the same question? Oh, no, it is not. Okay. Does the text generated by ChatGPT schedule subject to a plagiarism test? Okay. So there's like two answers to this question. One, I don't believe it would show up on something like Turnitin, which just checks for plagiarism on like sources on the internet and essays that have previously been turned in and things like that, because it is theoretically new generated text. That being said, it is still plagiarism. From like academic integrity standpoint, plagiarism is using anyone else's thoughts as your own without crediting them. So if you were to take a ChatGPT output and claim it as your own unique writing, that is plagiarism, like full stop. That's why I think that the uses of ChatGPT are best in places where plagiarism isn't an issue. Think above, I'm forgetting who talked about it. Someone talked about how it like wrote a bunch of functions for them. Here we go. ChatGPT helped me in writing many functions in a few minutes that saved many hours. If you are just like writing a project for a hackathon, where plagiarism isn't necessarily the like main concern, because you're already like in programming, you're using like other people's APIs and you can use resource projects and like all of these things. The goal is for you to be synthesizing and creating something new. I think using ChatGPT to augment that, not allowing it to create everything, but to augment your process is, in my opinion, ethically sound. But if you were to take, if I were to take this and I were to post it to a blog, and I were to not say that it came from ChatGPT, that is plagiarism. That's like very unethical in my opinion. Does the structuring of the object body of the text I don't necessarily know what you're asking here, but the like grammatical structure and all of that is good English, and the argument structure of like it like starts and then it goes into more detail and then it summarizes, like it generally does that sort of thing well. Best practices for the use deployment. Again, I think using it as a tool, like you would Googling something. You wouldn't take something that you Googled and submit it as your own work. You wouldn't take something that you found in a GitHub repo and take all of that code and say that it's yours without forking it and building on top of it, or only using part of it, or crediting it. You wouldn't like take a Stack Overflow post and only use the code within that Stack Overflow post. You wouldn't take a blog post and say it's your own. You wouldn't find a math problem answer on the internet and claim it's your own. Like all of those like existing ethical structures of what you would do with results from Google is, I guess, the way that I would treat this, where it is a tool that you can use and build off of. Okay. What is the degree of complexity for the ChatGPT algorithm? I don't necessarily know if degree of complexity is referring to like a very specific metric that I'm not aware of. There's probably a white paper on GPT-3, which is the algorithm behind this, which goes way more into depth on the technical details, but it is a very complex algorithm. Like there's a reason it's so special, and there aren't many, if any, real competitors to it right now, because it takes so much data and it processed all of it, and it's so fast, and it does all of these things really well. So creating a competitor would be hard, but you can again use it like this. This is an open source project, GPT Helper, which takes the GPT-3 algorithm and gives you a local version of it in case, like we saw at the beginning, ChatGPT is down. Okay. Great. What would example GraphQL code be for a Gatsby page? Let's say I have a markdown file with my data that I want to be displayed on the web page. Let's see if it can answer this. Let's see if it can generate some Gatsby code for us. Ooh. She did it. Okay. This is specifically what I wanted to show ChatGPT from an MLH and like a hackathon perspective, because I'm able to ask like specifically like what would sample code look like if I were to do this, and I don't need to find some tutorial that might be 2 years out of date. Now, this code might also be 2 years out of date, but this feels a lot easier and I can ask specific questions and things like that. Like, I find this much more accessible as a learning resource than trying to read through multiple different blog posts and trying to see which one actually answers my question the best and things like that. While it's typing, ChatGPT isn't designed to solve math problems. I believe it has like infamously said like 2 + 2 is 5, occasionally, based on what people have said beforehand, kind of like leading it to say things like that. So I wouldn't trust it to necessarily do things like that. There are other projects that are probably better at that, like Wolfram Alpha and things like that. Great, let's take a look at this sample code that it gave us. Here's an example of a GraphQL query you could use on a Gatsby page to retrieve data from a markdown file. So we're importing React and GraphQL from Gatsby. Wow, this is actually much simpler than I was expecting. Okay, query, GraphQL. I don't know if this formatting is right. This formatting feels wrong with those backticks, but we'll see. Export const query, GraphQL query, my query, markdown remark. Okay. Front matter, title, my post, HTML front matter, title, date tags. Okay. And then it's exporting our page where we have our heading being the title, and then the inner being our HTML, and then we add our date and text. Wow. This just worked. Like, again, we don't know if this code works. We still have to test it. But like, this just answered my question and illustrated a like very simple, nice way of doing this. Great. Let's read their like actual like text explanation of this code. In this example, we are using the GraphQL function from Gatsby to define a query that retrieves data from the markdown remark type. In the Gatsby GraphQL schema. Okay. This query specifies that we want to retrieve the HTML title, date, and tags fields from the markdown remark type. And they want to filter the results to only include markdown remarks where the title is equal to my post. Okay. So if we know that the title is my post, so if I were to, what I'm thinking about here is if I were to create a markdown file, that the title of that markdown file is like homepage, then I can just edit that markdown file with all of the information that I want to be on that like front page of my portfolio. And then this parses all that information. So I don't need to go through the website and find everything to make those changes. I can just change one file and it'll extrapolate out the information from that file to the formatting on the rest of the web page, which would be rare, just like, very nice. So that's great. The data object is passed to the component as a prop, great. Yep. Okay. Which, as a prop, the data object passed to the component as prop will contain the result of the query, so you can use it to render the data in your component. In this example, we're using JSX to render the title, the HTML from the markdown file, the date, and the tags from the markdown remark. Yeah. You can also use Gatsby's static query or use static query hooks to retrieve data in your components. Ah, so here we're retrieving the data before the component. I don't actually know if this is... No, this is within the component, theoretically. But we have another option, which is static query. It's important to keep in mind the query will only retrieve the data you ask for, so if you need additional data later on, you should adjust the query accordingly. Does the resulting data update when the source changes? Automatically update. Or would you need when the query again? I probably spelled query wrong there. Whoa! I'm low-key kind of mad right now at how nice this is. Like, it just feels wrong in some, like, deep way. Maybe that is, like... There we go. Give me the code to make a search engine. Bot gave me how to make a simple engine in Python. Yeah, it's really good at things like that. An example that was used on the WAN show that I was listening to was Linus uses a very specific program for managing folders and files in Linus Media Group, which is a media company that creates like 7 to 9 YouTube videos a week. So they have a lot of different folders and videos going all over the place. And he was asking for a script for the specific folder management software that they use to combine folders, and it just spat it out for him. And it was like, just like, there you go. It's very good at answering simple questions like that. If you ever need to write a script, this could be a good place to start. Okay. The resulting data from a GraphQL query in Gatsby will automatically update when the source changes, as long as Gatsby is able to detect the change and rebuild the site. Gatsby uses a process called data sourcing to pull data from various sources and make it available in the GraphQL schema. This process happens during the build process, and the data is then stored in the resulting HTML files. Once the site is built, Gatsby serves the pre-built HTML files so the data is already available to the client-side JavaScript. In this way, the data is already there when the page loads, so there's no need to make additional requests to fetch the data. This means that when you make changes to your data source, such as updating a markdown file, Gatsby will detect the change and rebuild the site. The next time the page is loaded, the updated data will be displayed. One important thing to keep in mind is the data is only updated when the site is rebuilt, so if you make changes to your data and don't rebuild the site, the changes will not be reflected on the page. Additionally, Gatsby also supports hot reloading, which means that when you make changes to your code, Gatsby will update the application without rebuilding the whole site, which provides a faster development experience. Well, that answered some good questions. Now, what we've done thus far is this is the process that I would go through. For those of you who haven't been to one of my streams before, often my methodology for this is to try learning a new thing on stream for all of y'all to see what it looks like for someone to be learning, because a lot of computer science content that's out there is by people who are already super knowledgeable, and they are putting this content out there that places them as experts, and it doesn't show them making mistakes much and learning things and like going through the whole learning process. So I think it's really important to show like what the learning process looks like for someone who has computer science background but isn't necessarily knowledgeable in everything, so that you can see that like this is a human process. That being said, this is kind of like the start of all of this, where I do this Googling, I read these blog posts, that sort of thing, where I try to kind of like get an understanding, and then I jump in and start writing code. This has answered the questions that I had to the extent that, like, let's Gatsby JS. Let's take a look at why Gatsby. And let's see, sorry for bumping the mic there. Let's see if this aligns with what we learned from ChatGPT. This is us like checking our work, because again, ChatGPT can be confidently wrong. Dimmer talks with a 10 out of 10. I would listen to you if you had a podcast. I'm touched, Adam. Thank you. Build rich web experiences by combining data from anywhere. Gatsby is a unified data layer. That's the GraphQL, which then enables data developers to easily combine data from different sources and render them alongside each other. Add content to your site from Shopify, WordPress, Stripe, and all other sources in a consistent manner. This is where I have like a lot of emotions right now, because this is the part in the learning process where I always get kind of mad, being honest, because this sounds like a really, really cool tool. Amaze visitors with unparalleled speeds and responsiveness. Gatsby combines static site generation, deferred static generation, intelligent page rendering to selectively pre-read the content that matters, giving you a blazing fast website that feels incredibly fast in performance. Improve your Lighthouse scores, SEO traffic, and conversions, all with Gatsby. For those of you who don't know, Lighthouse scores are used, I believe they started with Google, but I believe they're used basically everywhere to see how a page loads, for like the speed and what's slowing it down and things like that. Getting a low Lighthouse score is important. I believe well, in general, but I believe specifically that is part of the process for creating a progressive web app that Google or Chrome will recognize. But I'm mad right now because this seems like a very, very cool tool. And this is where I have like such complicated feelings about like, computer science and development and all of that. Cause I'm not super into like back-end code and things like that, but also, I want to make things like this. Cause this sounds like this right here. Build rich web experiences by combining data from anywhere. If you were here for my first stream this week, which was on Monday, I was talking about the low-code, no-code tools, and I was talking about how I think it's really important for you to own your code and own your data, to not have it on someone else's service. Especially as a developer. If you don't want to be a developer, using Squarespace is perfectly fine. But if you want to be a developer and you want to have control over that, I think it's really important for you to be able to do whatever you want with it. So the idea of being able to like have a Shopify store and easily add that to a website that you actually control. So you're taking, you use Shopify for the things that you want to use it for, and then can use your own stuff for the things that you want to use them for, is like a great combination. Amaze visitors with unparalleled speed and responsiveness. We already read that one. Delight developers with an experience that they enjoy. One of the things that I also enjoyed about ChatGPT is it wasn't in marketing speak. Like all of this is in marketing speak, which isn't necessarily exactly what we're looking for, because it's kind of a little bit more out there and it's not super down to earth. Like these, I wouldn't say are exact lies, but also I bet that there are tons of developers who are like, oh, I hated Gatsby when I needed to use it for blah, blah, blah. Gatsby is built on top of React and combines cutting-edge technologies like GraphQL, Webpack, and more to create an incredibly elegant developer experience. Spend more time building your app and less time maintaining and optimizing it. And scale traffic. Get started easily. Let's take a look at plugins, themes, and starters. Let's take a look at what they have. Plugins. This is what we asked before. And it gave us, it definitely gave us the source file system. It gave us the image plugin. It gave us Remark. Gave us sitemap. It didn't tell us basically any of the third-party ones. So we can see the like first-party ones, but it didn't tell us about Contentful. Which is a CMS service, but I'm curious to know more. I really want to continue, but I have to leave. However, amazing stream. Thank you so much. You can always check out the recordings on the MLH YouTube channel. And also, I'm probably going to be continuing to use ChatGPT in future streams with MLH, because this has been going really well. So check back in for future times that I'm streaming. I don't actually believe I introduced myself at the start of this. Hi, y'all. I'm Dimmer. I use they, them pronouns. So just like, keep an eye out for when I'm next streaming, which should be, my next stream is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to be talking about finding and using libraries. Careful, Contentful, isn't that where Herschel works? I honestly don't know. I haven't kept up with Herschel too much. Now, here's the first place that I always go when I'm looking at a new thing of what is the pricing? Because if I'm creating a personal project, again, I want to make sure that I will have access to it. Starting at 489 US dollars a month. Woo! Time for a LinkedIn stock. Oh my God. You are incredible. Okay, space limits. Custom roles. Adam was correct. Asset size 50 megabyte. Asset bandwidth 0.75 terabyte a month. Hard limit, no overages. Okay, so we can use Contentful. We can use WordPress, Drupal, many CMSs. We have a bunch of different CSS tools. Emotion. Emotion is now used by Material UI for React. That's what I know it from. Oh, Material UI. There we go. Analytics, built-in Google Analytics, e-commerce, Shopify, Snipcart, Stripe. Search, Algolia, if you are an OG MLHer from like 2018, 2019, I believe 2018. Algolia was a sponsor, and media, Vimeo. Okay. Great. So there aren't like a ton of plugins, but you don't necessarily need a ton of plugins. Great. Okay. Great. This, I believe, has basically covered everything that we talked to ChatGPT about. The one thing was I asked more about auto updating in GraphQL, but that was more curiosity. Now let's take a brief look at Next.js. Actually, wait. I want to take a look at their themes and starters. They have an example blog, a bunch of examples for different CMS systems. A bunch of different examples for portfolios. Great. I don't want to use one of those today because the point of this isn't to make something necessarily, but more to experiment with new technology. But that's great. And Gatsby themes. There are supposed to be themes somewhere in here. That's pretty nice. Great. Okay. Let's take a look at Next.js. I knew it was owned by... Okay. Yes. This is... Yes. This is why I knew of Next.js, is because of Vercel. I originally, like a year ago, your background music is vibey. I like it. I'm Oh, rip my internet for a moment there. Oh, background music is Stream Beats Hi-Fi by Harris Heller. Highly recommend. Good background music, good vibes. Like lo-fi, but a little bit higher energy. Okay, so I know of Next.js from Vercel, which is like a really nice hosting platform that I'm like 90% sure is a really nice free tier for hobbyists. Yeah, unless you're using 1 terabyte of bandwidth. The hobby level is super great, and it's used by a lot of people. Yeah. So Vercel is, I believe I had some website hosted by Vercel at some point. Build when inspiration strikes. Free developers from time-consuming and unnecessary processes that slow your work. I used Netlify. I take that back. I forgot that they are separate companies. Whew. I'm not going to necessarily get into that one because I don't know which one's better, but this is a good question of like, should I use Next.js and easily host it with Vercel? Who knows? Iterate with your team. Great. That's Vercel. React, or Next, sorry. Oh, I forgot that they just released Next.js 13, which ChatGPT cannot know about because ChatGPT doesn't know of anything past 2021. This is one of its downsides. Next.js 13 was just released like a couple weeks ago. I saw it cross some of my news timelines. Okay. If I hit get started, do you take me right to the docs? It's not necessarily what I want. Powerful routing and layouts. What does that mean? Native support for custom fonts and images. Now, the thing that I think is really interesting is file system routing. Because I know, especially with like React websites, because in traditional HTML, you can just use the folder structure to determine new pages. I know that it's slightly more complicated for a React app because a React app is meant to basically just be like you're on one place. That's why I was wondering, like, how do we create a static React app that has multiple different pages? And with Gatsby, it hasn't necessarily answered that question. Great. So I'll be honest here. Adam is a Netlifier. Okay. I used Netlify I used Netlify once. I don't have necessarily a strong preference. Again, I would just go with whatever gives you the most you can without needing to pay money. Okay. Looking at this, I honestly agree with ChatGPT's recommendation at the very beginning that was basically, where is it? Right here. If you want a static site generator that's built with performance and scalability in mind, use Gatsby. If you want both server rendered and static React applications, Next.js is a good choice because it looks like Next.js can do a lot like more, but for what we want to make, which is like a very static web page, Gatsby is a great thing to use. And we got some sample code. So, that being said, let's start writing some code. Let's start making a personal site. Now, actually, can I use Three.js in a Gatsby site? I'm asking this because Three.js is a I'm using Three.js in a future project. On stream, I believe that stream is on... It is on the 14th at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to be using Three.js to create awesome 3D websites with cool transitions and graphics and things like that. So I was just curious. Can Gatsby work well with Three.js? And the answer is yes, you can use Three.js in a Gatsby site. Froze for a bit, back now. Great. You can use useEffect, use layout effect hooks to mount Three.js scenes and update when the component is rendered. Great. Ooh, and you can use static query or static query hooks to retrieve data in your components and use it to create and update the 3JS scene. Additionally, you may use the Gatsby plugin 3JS for Gatsby, which will ease the process of integrating 3D graphics into your Gatsby project. Tell me more about Gatsby plugin 3JS. And while it's doing that, always keep in mind that when you're using a library like 3JS, you need to handle things like disposing of a scene when the content component unmounts, or handling window resizes and other effects that can events that can affect the scene. It's also worth noting that 3JS can consume a lot of resources, so it's important to optimize your scene and use techniques such as lazy loading, texture compression, and other performance optimizations. Great. 3JS is a tool for basically building 3D scenes in your website. So all of that makes sense. Gatsby plugin 3JS is a Gatsby plugin that makes it easier to use 3JS in your Gatsby site. The plugin provides a simple way to create and update 3JS scenes and also provides some built-in components that you can use to create your scenes, which is great. To use Gatsby plugin 3JS on your Gatsby site, you need to first install it. Once the plugin is installed, you need to configure it in your Gatsby config.js file. Here's an example of how you can configure it. I again just want to bring us back to this conversation started in this chain, just asking like, what should I use to make my website? And now it's giving me sample code of like, here's how you can make cool transition animations and add like a spinning 3D globe if you wanted to, all within the same conversation. If I wasn't stopping to like talk to y'all and read this out loud, like this would be a super fast process. I'm glad that I get to be here with y'all and do this process with you. But the point of this stream is to talk about ChatGPT and using it in your projects. So, okay. Once the plugin is configured, you can use the built-in 3Canvas component to create a 3JS canvas in your pages or components. That's nice. You can pass a setup function as a prop to the 3Canvas component, which will be called with a renderer, camera, and scene as arguments. Now, I haven't used 3 before, so that sounds great. I don't have much more to say than, like, it basically has given us, the plugin also provides some built-in 3JS components like orbit controls, first-person controls, fly controls, trackball controls, and transform controls that you can use to control your camera and objects in your scene. If you have ever seen really cool personal portfolio sites where you're like a car driving around in a place, 3JS chances are the technology that was used. Basically, if you've ever seen a really cool website that does something that makes it more than just like a static flat page website, 3JS was probably what they were using. So keep in mind that Gatsby plugin 3JS is just a wrapper around 3, and you still need to use 3 to use this plugin, which is great. This is like a great answer. Like, taking a sec to breathe, but like, this is just like exciting and fun and cool. And I'm like really happy about this, because it sounds like Gatsby is what I would want to use to create a fun personal site that can contain like a blog that reads markdown files and some cool little 3JS animations and things. So I can have like a little 3D cactus that like spins around and waves at you when you show up or something like that. Great. Let's ask, how do I start a new Gatsby project? So I already have Node, but I don't have a Gatsby CLI because I didn't know we were going to be using Gatsby. I was expecting to be using Next for this, but ChatGPT convinced me I should try something else. Ugh. It's giving me the install command. Wow. So good. There's a reason that this was down at the start of this stream, because a lot of people are using it because it can be a very good tool. Great, let's take a look at this. So make sure you have Node and Gatsby CLI. I have Node. It gives us an install link. This is the GPT 3 chat that I had set up at the beginning as a backup in case the original ChatGPT wasn't up. So let us, I'm actually just going to close out of this. I'm going to close out of GitHub Desktop and Documents. Let's create a new folder, port. Olio, if I can type. And we're going to open this folder in VS Code. I probably shouldn't have closed VS Code there, but let's open up that folder. Great. Okay. Now let's do some window management. Don't need you. Okay. So it then is telling us to install the Gatsby CLI. Adam giving me brand management advice. I'll take a look at that in 1 second while we're installing the Gatsby CLI. I've got a better name than Dimmer Talks. The radio show podcast should have been Chat Dimmer. I will file that away. Do you want royalties, Adam, if I were to go with Chat Dimmer? For when my, I don't know, Squarespace and Helix and what are Blue Apron, what are all the podcast sponsors? I just want free access? Okay, I can do that. I do love writing projects using React and other node-based platforms because NPM, having a package manager, that is something that I never got good at with Java. I was never really good at using other packages and libraries and things like that. Python with pip and React with NPM, I can do that. Never got good enough with Java to feel comfortable with it. Great, okay, we have Gatsby CLI. Once we have it installed, you can create a new Gatsby project by running the following command. The command will create a new directory called mysite. You can also use the Gatsby new command to create a new project based on the starter template. Let's use the starter template. And let's not call it mysite. Let's call it Chat Dimmer to honor Adam right now. My tongue is genuinely still hurting from the pizza incident. I'm sending hugs over the Atlantic Ocean, Adam. I understand the pain of capsaicin when it is not expected. I got a gift of some hot sauce from someone, and it was very funny because I cannot handle hot sauce, and it was very spicy hot sauce. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford a plane ticket so it doesn't have to be over the Atlantic. Oh my goodness, Adam, you're very sweet. Maybe someday I'll be able to afford a plane ticket so it can be over the Atlantic. Like I'll go over to you rather than the other way around. Woo! We should get coffee. That would be great. I can see, I don't know if it's my internet or my computer that's struggling, but both live streaming and doing an NPM install doesn't seem to be making anything too happy right now. My audio still seems to be good, but my video might be lacking a bit. If you can let me know how things are on your end. This is also one of my favorite things. Like, this is my favorite part. Well, not my favorite part, but this is always a great part in a hackathon where you've done all the planning, you've done research, and now you're just doing the NPM installs and setting up the page, and you just get a sec to like relax and chill out and watch as scripts that other people have written do all the work for you. And maybe we'll see that continue happening with ChatGPT, but I don't think I'm going to ask it to write everything for us. I like using it to give us examples, but especially because this is a learning instance, I like being able to do things myself. I wasn't expecting lyrics. So it's 6:20 Eastern time right now. If the hypothetical coffee shop we go to has this music, it'll be great. There's a really nice coffee shop where I am right now, but the owner doesn't pay for Spotify Premium, and they play music, and it's like a really great vibe. It's a really great place. It's like really for the community. It's amazing, but also, hoo boy, getting interrupted by like, want a break from the ads when I'm trying to write sometimes can be a little difficult. Part of me wants to be like, hey, can I just like give you my Spotify login? Like, what if we were to do that? Great. Okay. So this is finished running. So let us take a look again at what ChatGPT told us. Once the project is created, you can navigate to the project directory by running cd my site and start developing the server by running Gatsby develop. Surely a coffee shop can afford the overhead of like $10 a month. I know, right? Ugh. This command, great. Oh. Okay. So it pulled from one of these. Which starter did we use? Starter default. But we could have chosen many of them, but we chose default here. Ooh, default looks ugly. Maybe times are tough. I mean, yes, very valid. But I'd be scared if that was truly the reason, because that probably means that business isn't long for this world, and that would make me very sad, because it is my favorite place in Ipsy. How much does a coffee cost there? Like $5 or $6. So it's not cheap, but I often actually don't get coffee. I just kind of hang out, chill, meet some friends. That is one of the reasons why I think it's so cool, is because it's really just a community space. A lot of people do get coffee. It's very popular. So I don't necessarily feel bad about not spending my like limited student budget on kind of expensive coffee for where I'm at. But yeah, we love community spaces. Anyway, pulling myself back from talking about my love for community spaces, let me run Gatsby develop, and let's take a look at this. Error. Oh, I didn't change directory into chat dimmer. Hey. Looks like things are at least starting to load. My computer, again, isn't the fastest when I'm both live streaming and doing this. The anticipation is killing me for a sec. I mean, it still kind of is for me, because it still hasn't actually done anything. Though, we know what it's going to look like because we saw it on the Gatsby site. It's going to be a fairly ugly looking default starter project. Trying to figure out what emoji that is. I think it looks like a cookie. Is that a cookie? Yes, that is a cookie. These pauses make or break programmers. I mean, I like to think of them as just like, oh yeah, I just get to relax. But that's part of the reason why I'm just getting to relax right now is because I haven't actually written any of this code. So if it goes wrong, there's a very high percentage chance that it's not actually my fault. It's not a bug, it's a feature. I mean, there's a great XKCD about... Let me see if I can find it while this is loading. I have a YouTube short to send me after the stream. I don't know if I should be scared or looking forward to it, but whether or not it's folly, I'm looking forward to it. Great XKCD. The #1 programmer excuse for legitimately slacking off. My code's compiling. Hey, get back to work. Compiling. Oh, carry on. That's truly a big mood. Oh no, it's great. Then I'm very excited. Wow, this is actually taking quite a long time to load. It's almost like I'm both running OBS and then a web-based streaming service to send it to MLH, and also trying to build a website at the same time. And my computer, she's maybe 4 years old at this point. She's getting up there in years. I mean... she's not... she could be doing worse. Oh wait, it finished. I've been staring at this, it's already finished. I'm just not used to what a Gatsby loaded website looks like. I'm used to React. Hey, oh look. It worked. Which I also just want to point out. Up to this point, we haven't looked at the Gatsby official docs. We've only been following ChatGPT's interpretation of the Gatsby docs. Like, I looked at them to just like double check things. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna use this to apply to all of the big FANG companies. I think it really reflects my personality. I think it really shows who I am as a person and a developer. So great, they have probably a very good tutorial, but that's not the point of this. Let us... Great. I mean, it's purple like your Chrome. I mean, it is nice and purple. My default Chrome is just like the default dark theme, but whenever I'm streaming, I switch to a separate profile, which is purple. So I have like the actual stream running in this window. And then I have my, like, what I want to talk to y'all about up in a different window. I should have been wearing my glasses this whole time. Ugh. Is that title The Secrets About Dimmer? Oh, definitely. You know, on this second monitor, I have national secrets, personal secrets, all the things. I have all of my, like, Bitcoin wallets. It turns out that I'm actually the creator of Bitcoin. I'm blanking on his name. Okay. So let's take a step back. We've achieved like our first set of goals, which was to use ChatGPT to like answer the question of like, how should we build this? And like, how do we start that? Now we actually need to make some choices. And given that it is 6:30 and I have you all until 7, so we have about half an hour. But we want to continue working on this webpage in our future things, in our future meetings, in the future streams that I'm doing later this week. Goodness, I'm being a little verbose. I think what I want to do is to clear out what we have and do two things, which is one, set up like a basic homepage that's like, hi, I'm Dimmer, it's nice to meet you, where we can add cool Three.js stuff to experiment with that. And then if we still have time, it would be Dimmer for President 2023. I mean, if you want me to run, I can run for the 2023 presidential election. I feel like, Adam, you're just practicing your dad jokes in chat now. Golly, I was in the middle of a sentence. Oh, so then secondly, I would really like to, earlier I asked, like, how can I use markdown files to like post to a Gatsby website? And I would love to use that to like work with a blog, and just like see if I can create a simple blog where I can upload markdown files about my like long angsty ramblings about indie music and post them to the internet for everyone to see, and see if we can have Gatsby parse that and make it into web pages without me needing to actually make new web pages. Yeah, those are the two things I want to do. The first one is just to like make a little, hi, I'm Dimmer. I don't know what my pose is. I keep doing different poses each time, like a little, I'm a little teapot. You know, Adam, I'm not going to justify that one with a response. I'm going to put it on screen while I move on. Great. How can I use a, what would it be? What would it be? I guess, how can I use a, how can I make my Gatsby website responsive? Let's see what it tells me to do. Because I was about to start working with like grids and things like that. Use CSS Grid or Flexbox layout. Use media queries. So while this is answering, I'm going to look at chat. I'm really excited that MLH is doing Global Hack Weeks monthly now, because I really like doing these sort of streams. And I think I might start a competition where at the end of each stream, I announce the best pun that was said in chat, because I think that that could make this chat has been very good in how bad it is, filled with puns. And I'm very excited for that. It's an idea that I'm floating out there. I don't commit to this, but it is an idea that I'm thinking about. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Using the CSS Grid, that's what I used to use. Media queries, allow you to apply to, yep, okay. Heard of that before. Use responsive images. Gatsby uses the Gatsby image plugin for handling images. The plugin automatically generates different sizes of an image for different screen resolutions, so the browser can serve the appropriate image to the device. Good. Use the React responsive library. The React responsive library allows you to create different styles based on the screen layout of the device. You can use it to create responsive components that adjust to different sizes. Use a CSS framework that is responsive by default. So I'm curious about 4 and 5, because those are the ones that I haven't necessarily heard about before. Can you tell me more about React responsive? Oh. It just provides a nice, clean way of doing media queries, which honestly is, I think, what I would want to do for a personal website, because I'm not super concerned about like unique scaling and things like that. Basically, I want to create almost two websites, one for a mobile device and one for a desktop size screen. The way that it just throws out code, love it. I know it's really nice that I was just able to like, all of these would be across different like blog posts, because I'm basically doing a choose my own adventure of what frameworks and tools that I want to be using. And rather than needing to ask them in all these different places in all these different ways, it just throws out code and then explains what it's doing to me. Like, there is again the chance that it is confidently wrong, and I will try using code like this and it'll just fail miserably and I'll fall down a rabbit hole. But this seems pretty correct to me. Like, yeah. I am excited for this because that's basically exactly what I would want for a personal website. Especially one that I'm trying to like make look fancy with cool animations and things like that. Where like on a what's a good example? Let's go to Ars Technica. This is my favorite tech news source. If you'd seen me in a previous stream, I created an extension that randomizes all the vowels on Ars Technica just to make my own life miserable. But we can see that this is like a responsive web page because as I move the screen size between different things, it's switching like constantly, basically. And I guess like that can be a very good thing for something like this, which is a website filled with articles and ads. But for what I'm doing, just being able to use this sounds great. So I'm going to, how do I install React Responsive? Now I already know this. I install it with npm, but the goal of this stream is to use everything that ChatGPT is. Yep, boom. I didn't even need to think. I was just able to use the exact code that it told me. How do I install React Blahage? You know, I don't know if Blahage has an npm module yet. If he doesn't, that could be a good project. I do have a Blahage over next to me. Great, okay. So now that is installed. And let's take a look at min width, max height, orientation. Orientation! My Haj is also next to me. Blahage is so good. Different conversation for a different stream, but I love my Blahage so much. React Responsive also provides a use media query hook that you can use to check the media features of the device and use them in your component logic. This has given me, like I was about to start using grid units, and grid units can kind of be a pain in the butt. And this has given me a simpler solution for what I need. I've legitimately learned something. Now, this is kind of like this is a experiment where we are playing bowling with the bumpers up, because I already knew about Gatsby and I already knew about this stuff beforehand. So I'm asking it these questions, kind of being like, like, what would you say about this? And I can kind of do a brief smell check to see if it's like going way off the rails. But now I'm actually learning new things that I'd never used before. So great. So what does Gatsby itself do that React doesn't? Gatsby is, think of like when you're starting a new React project. I know I would always use create React app. And that's like a very specific system for taking React code and making it a website. Gatsby is a different way of doing that. So it takes React code, and instead of allowing it or kind of more forcing it to be like super responsive and loading every time and running a bunch of JavaScript and things like that, it basically compiles it down to more simpler, faster loading web pages. And it has a bunch of things on top of it with that GraphQL interface that we were talking about earlier that allows us to use data from CMSs, from Markdown, from things like that it can then process and build out into something else. So it's really great for creating blogs, portfolios, stores, things like that. Those were all the examples that we were given. Great, okay. With that being said, let's take a look at our source, components, pages. You just hit a wrap that doesn't exist. The sadness. Mwah. Pretty good. Index, page 2. Okay. Let us take a look at how this homepage is structured. We have a bunch of constants that are links. And then we have sample page links and more links. You're making me want to explore Gatsby now. I mean, yeah, that is the danger of attending a stream that I do, because usually I'm touching on a new technology and it's a technology that I've been like, oh, I really should explore this more. And if you're interested in what I'm doing, there's a small to big chance that you might want to start working with it too. Okay, great. Basically, we have a bunch of sets of links. UTM parameters, and then we have our actual page here. Okay. This isn't the most like simplistic readable sample in existence, especially if you're used to like a basic React website, like create React app website. I love that the loading is eager. I'm sure that that means something to someone, but eager loading does not mean something to me. Static image, React fragments. Have yet to hear of that, but it makes sense with the way that they were using their links up here, so that their sets of links can just be pulled from that set using a for loop of some kind. Yeah, there we go. There's the map. Okay. Most of this is, yes. Oh yeah, almost all of this, if not all of it, is boilerplate. I'm just curious to see what they've done just to get a sample. I am just going to delete most, if not all of it. Ooh, this is just like normal CSS. This is nice. Oh, duh, it's using the class name. Sorry. Will you be in attendance at Alina's GeoGuessr stream? Probably not. This is a pretty busy week for me, so I'm doing my streams, but I can't be super present for other people's, unfortunately. Okay, great. Let us get rid of you. And we're gonna do an H1 that is, hi, I'm Dimmer. I'm super cool. And we're gonna save this. Let's take a look at our development page. What does this look like? It has a bunch of Gatsby guff around it, which I'm assuming is based on this layout tag. I'm curious if I get rid of this layout tag. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now I don't necessarily want to get rid of the layout tag because you'll notice that it did a bunch of like, excusez-moi. There we go. It did a bunch of like nice, it like centered it and made it look nice and like, okay, sure. So let's take a look at how layout is defined. It gives us a footer, which we can then customize. Fill it with Gatsby by Dimmer. Actually, no. We don't need this. This is like so formal and professional. We do not need a header. And we do not need, wait, I done goofed something. We don't need the header and we don't need the footer. Now, hey, oh look. That looks not atrocious. That could be worse. Now I am curious. Size, content, size, gutter. Where are those being defined? In this mess, okay. I'm going to keep layout because I think this would be great for like a blog post where we just kind of want to like put some text up in a way that is unoffensive. But for our main website, this is a little bit restrictive with how much content is being cut on the sides. So let's go to index. Let's get rid of these layout tags. Excuse me for the yawn. And let us going to import React. What is it? ChatGPT, what did you tell me to use? React responsive. Import, what do we want to import from? Import media query from React responsive. Great. And now let's take this sample code. Let's slap it down here. Unhandled runtime error. Oof. Element type is invalid. Expected a string. The string for built-in components or a class function for but got undefined. You likely forgot to export your component from the file it's been defined in, or you might have mixed up default named imports. Check the renderer method of index page. Really? Why? What problems is that causing? I just wanted to comment it out. Okay. Okay, so with the plain div it works, which it should. Oh my goodness, I just lost it. Ugh. This is why having a better clipboard manager than the default is nice, but I don't. Let's just use... I'm assuming it's the media query that's not loading properly, but it's imported correctly. Yeah, okay. Oh my goodness, Adam, thank you. I'm glad that this stream has had good chill vibes. That's usually what I'm going for. We didn't get as far as I was hoping, because we talked a lot more about AI and ChatGPT in general, which is really great. That was the focus of the stream, but we didn't get as far on like the website that we were making, which was secondary. Element type is invalid, which is annoying because we're importing media query correctly. You know what we're gonna do? Let's ask ChatGPT. How can I fix a element type is invalid runtime error in Gatsby when using React responsive? Okay, here's where we get to, there's like a 99% chance that we need to refresh the page, because ChatGPT can sometimes be a little bit overwhelmed. You killed ChatGPT, yes. Time of death, 6:49. Oh. It has given me an actual answer that what? This is where I get kind of mad because again, like this is something that like would have taken me a hot sec to try figuring out, and it's just given me like exactly like, and it's been able to answer specifically with React Responsive in mind because it's given me a library that is compiled with React Responsive in it. It's not just giving me a basic like Stack Overflow answer of like, here's what an element type invalid means. It's giving me like a very specific, okay, this is what I actually want to do, which is modify my Webpack configuration. You can also add the to the list of modules. She stopped. Wasn't expecting that. Can you tell me more about modifying my Webpack? Big. And it remembers React Responsive. Again, this is why it's nice, because it has all of that context. And it's giving me the code to put... This is why I think it can be a really great learning tool, because rather than, like, one of the things that I find really frustrating when learning a new thing with code is that it is just like, it's very hard to, when you find an error and you hear descriptions of it, when like I've never written something in Gatsby before, to understand like, ooh, this doesn't work the same way that Create React App does. I would need to change how the Webpack file works when I've never used the Webpack file. So giving me this example is like really nice for gaining knowledge. Now, it can be a double-edged sword because I could just copy this code and not try to learn anything. But I am trying to learn things. Hey, Fire of Dragon, welcome back. Of course I do. You've been really active in chat today. It's been super nice. It is 6:52, and I normally like to end a little bit early. So if there's a stream after us, is there a stream after us? There is a stream after us, which is preparing for technical interviews. I want to give them some time, so I'm probably going to keep going for like 3 to 5 more minutes, and then we're going to finish up here. But I really appreciate you coming back. That's really sweet. Okay. Gatsby Node.js file. And we just want to add this code, apparently, because it doesn't have anything like that. Oh my God, there are no errors in this. Oh, this is so helpful. Because I was expecting it to have some things already, but okay, wait. Now, if I go back to here and I hit save and we go back to this page and I refresh. Okay. Take a look. It's worth noting this is just an example. If you're using Gatsby v2, you should use rules instead of loaders. Have a loader and its dependencies installed. Okay, I think this is where we're going to end it for today, because this seems like a much more complicated error than we have time to deal with in the remaining like 1 to 2 minutes. So I'm going to switch back to my just talking view and close out with y'all. First of all, thank you for being here. I really appreciate when people show up to my streams. Y'all are the reason why I do this. It's super fun interacting with you all and creating new things. So I'm really glad that you're here. I'm also going to really quickly drop the check-in link again, so you can check in and get points for your guild. Go to this link and check in and register to make sure that you get those points. And again, thank you all so much for showing up. I'm glad it was fun. This stream went really well, and it definitely shows that I'm going to probably be using ChatGPT in future streams, because it's a great way of getting information and explaining it to people watching in a way that's really good, instead of me just like quickly skimming a blog post and being like, okay, I think I have the solution, but I don't know if I can explain it. ChatGPT, I think, is a really good tool for this. So I'm glad that y'all enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. My next stream is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, finding and using libraries. So we're probably going to be adding some fun little doohickeys to this website that we're creating, using some React modules or some Node modules, React modules, that sort of thing. So come hang out again. It's just going to be another chill, fun time. I spilled water trying to get back to the stream before you ended. I'm so sorry, Adam. I hope it didn't spill on anything like super necessary. I hope it was just on you, because humans are usually waterproof. Is this the HatCon 2021 hoodie you're wearing? Yes, it is. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining. I've been Dimmer, and I'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Spill on your carpet and your foot. Well, thankfully, both of those hopefully are fairly waterproof. So, at least it could have been worse. Okay, bye!